Hello, welcome to a special episode of Mindful Chats. My name is Kyle Dzintars. I am a senior counselor at the SUNY Oswego Counseling Center. Recently, I sat down with some faculty, staff, and students to talk about self-care, what's changed during the pandemic, what it feels like when we're overwhelmed or stressed, and then some ideas on what we can do to take care of our physical, mental health, and stay connected during this time. My goal with this podcast is to help us all be a little bit more vulnerable, to share our struggles and our successes together, and to see that we really are a collective community who are all experiencing something that we don't know how to handle, that we're all just doing the best we can with what we've got. So as you listen, I hope there are some bits of wisdom, some practical tips that you take away from this that you can start to implement for yourselves and start to feel connected to the people around you. In this podcast, I sat down and asked everybody to introduce themselves with their roles, their professional roles on campus, and who they are as humans outside of work and school. I spoke with...
I'm Dr. Laura Spenceley. I'm a faculty member in counseling in psychological services. I'm a school psychologist by training, and I'm our associate dean of graduate studies here on campus. Yeah, I'm a mom to fur babies. We have a couple dogs, a couple cats, an avid runner. I'm really involved in advocacy and kind of promotion of the field of school psychology and kind of more broadly public education and the way that public education serves our communities, and kind of just a dork. I like cartoons and learning about simulation theory and reading books and, enjoying beautiful weather like we're having here in central New York today. You can hear one of the fur babies in the background. This is Frank.
Hi, I'm Michelle Storie. I'm an assistant professor in the Counseling and Psychological Services Department, and I teach in the school psychology program, so it's a graduate program on campus. I also run a part-time private practice, and I'm a Zumba instructor. So I teach one Zumba class a week and sometimes do teaching Zumba vacations where I teach at resorts in the Caribbean.
So I'm Reg Braggs. I'm the director of SUNY Oswego's Syracuse campus. And I actually have been working in this position now at SUNY Oswego for the last year. My roles outside of work, I'm a brother, I'm a father, I'm a uncle, cousin, to a lot of different people and things like that. I also, just consider myself, someone who, tries to be supportive and helpful, even outside of my job with my neighbors, and things like that.
My name is Stephanie Pritchard, and I'm a visiting assistant professor. I teach in the English and Creative Writing department. I also am the assistant director for writing across the curriculum, and I'm the director of something called the Creativity Lab, which is associated with the digital storytelling work that I do. Outside of campus, I am a mom. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter named Addie. I also am a group exercise instructor, so I do that outside of work. I teach at the Oswego YMCA.
Hi, I'm Abigail, and I'm a P2P.
Okay, I'm Asabea. I'm also in the P2P, and my major is psychology.
Hi, I'm Delaney, and I'm also a P2P.
Hi, I'm Shana. I'm one of the P2Ps.
Hi, I'm Emma, and I'm also one of the P2Ps, and someday I want to be a play therapist.
What have you noticed as some of the stressors or challenges that have come up during this time that you've struggled with?
Not knowing what things are going to look like in the future. As an administrator, my job is to plan things. So, it's planning with an asterisk for the last 12 months. We're clearly working at home. And so when there's not that clear delineation of work and private time, as a faculty member, we always kind of deal with that. We don't work 9 to 5. We work when our classes are scheduled, and we meet with students around their schedules, and we're researching on the weekend. So in that space, I've kind of learned that skill, but as an administrator, there has been a lot of kind of reflecting on values and that it's okay to not work on Saturdays and things like that, and knowing when to say like, no, I just can't do this right now. And it gets complicated when you add in then other people to that, whether it's roommates or a romantic partner, or you're living with family members, kind of like Groundhog Day. We get up and we go to work and our partners are sitting in the next room. I really have noticed how much I'm missing some of the separations, those very clear delineations of I'm at work now, I'm doing work things, and I'm at home now, I have the space to do home things.
My anxiety has been heightened because we don't know when everything's going to end and things are going to return to normal, or if they're even going to return to normal. So I think that's been the hardest part. I do like to have control over situations. So it's been tough not being able to predict what's going to happen or plan for what's going to happen.
That I joined SUNY Oswego about a year ago. So guess what? A year ago is when the pandemic hit. Right around this time frame in March, I was just coming in. I used to work in Nigeria at an American university there. Here, but I'm a new person coming in. That was a big stressor, coming in, not knowing how that was going to be managed. I'm responsible for the campus, so I was always up under some sort of stress with the pandemic, some type of outbreak or something happening at the campus, and then how we would manage that and things. The Oswego Forward Plan by SUNY Oswego was very good, and a lot of those things were kind of lined out. So that helped as we were organizing it to make it a lot easier to manage. Fortunately for me, man, I stepped into a great organization with wonderful folks. Everybody was very supportive and getting me on board in a very, very nice, concise, succinct, caring type of way to understand my situation.
I mean, probably our challenges are probably pretty similar and different, right? Like trying to imagine my classes and how I can still teach and be like a good teacher, or at least a kind of interesting teacher, right? Like via Zoom. So figuring out work that still feels meaningful for them to do when they're not in class, but so that they still feel like they're learning, like that's been really hard. That's probably been the hardest thing, actually, trying to figure out how to help students still feel like they're learning something and that it's valuable to them, right? Like during this whole thing. And also to try to deal with my own like weird insecurities about, being on Zoom and looking at my face, and I know that you can hide your face, but I have like a thing about like stuff being in my teeth, or like a hair like being off to the side, or like, a booger. And like the biggest stressor is just like, am I still doing a good job? Because I really want to, but wanting to and actually doing a good job are two like very different things, right? So that's probably the biggest stressor, wanting to still do a good job and hoping that I am.
COVID, quarantine. I feel like I have to mention it's been a big part of what's been going on lately. So
everything lately has just changed, and it's been very stressful.
On top of feeling like the stress of COVID, we still have 15 or more credits to focus on. That can be very overwhelming, and not finding the time to do other things.
The classes and how we aren't really getting that many days off. I know people can suffer from like burnout and things like that. So.
When you're starting to notice maybe the pressure is heightened, the stress is increased, how do you know when you need self-care? Like, what are your red flags?
It was actually someone else that started to tell me, like, Spenceley, you're clearly overworked right now. And it is that kind of level of everything is prescient and everything needs to get solved right now. So the inability to put things down, or I'll get really snappy with people. I typically am a kind of upbeat person at work. I like my job. I like coming to work. I like seeing people. But when I start to notice that every email starts to trigger like, oh God, I got to do something. Or every question is, oh, please just leave me alone so I can get my work done. Or when I start to realize that, I'm just not regulating my emotions well. Those are kind of the real clear indicators that it's time to hit the reset button and a timeout. I actually call it like temper tantrums. Like I will honestly notice my body manifesting these things, like doing the kind of the leg stomp or the like, yes. Like the overly physical gesture.
Well, my Fitbit will go off and tell me that I haven't moved in quite some time and I've been sitting in front of my computer for hours. But oftentimes I can tell that when I'm just short and irritable with people. So something that really shouldn't have upset me will set me off and get me frustrated. or I'll become overly emotional about something that was kind of a minor piece and really shouldn't have brought that level of emotion.
For me, I lose focus, or I start making mistakes doing an email or something, and I'm writing, and I'm making some errors in what I'm trying to, write to someone, or even after I've sent an email and I go back and reread it, and I'm like, wait a second, okay, I think something is not, I'm not focusing in, or I get kind of, a little tired, I'm working late, and I'm realizing, like, why am I up at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock working on this? I think I'm not organizing my time well, or I'm doing too many things. I need to, let loose of something, and things like that. So that's how I kind of recognize that, that I need to engage in self-care.
I get weird, and there's really probably not a better way to explain it. I think when you're a writer, you already kind of talk to yourself more than other people do, right? Like, you have the whole conversations and stuff. And sometimes, like, I'll answer myself out loud. I also find that I get real cranky, like really cranky. And I try pretty hard to be like a relatively upbeat person. But like, if I'm walking down the hallway and like just the carpet is bothering me because of how it looks, right? It's time to do something. Just like all those little things that either I do on a regular basis or that like would usually not bother me at all, right? Like if we're driving down a 2-lane road, and like somebody pulls in front of me without using their signal light, I'm seriously considering rear-ending them. Like, I'm really thinking about it, right? Whereas before I would be like, oh, that wasn't very nice. Like I'm swearing.
I know for me, sometimes I get a little snippy. Not always the best way to cope with it, but something that occurs, and I become like very tired, because obviously if you're going to be working constantly to try and resolve the stressor, like if it's homework or just getting stuff done for like clubs and organizations, you're staying up later or you're not attending to other needs, and then you're just like tired.
For me, I know like when I need self-care is when I notice a fluctuation within my emotions. So whether I'm really just exhausted or upset, angry, PO, whatever you want to call it, is when I just really know I need to go time for myself.
I know I'm stressed when I have trouble focusing on one thing at one time. My mind will kind of wander off if I have too much going on.
I don't really think I know when I'm stressed. I feel like I just go through every day, and then it hits me all of a sudden and I feel drained. And then it's kind of like I have to pick myself back up. I honestly don't know like what leads to me being like completely drained. I need to watch out for that. I'm not really sure.
So then you have these warning signs. You're like, all right, I need to take care of myself. How do you do so?
For me, so much I've learned over the years, self-care is a really physical practice for me. I was an athlete as a kid. I like to move my body, and I really start to feel that kind of physical anxiety growing if I don't maintain a pretty active schedule. And so what I try to do is have a really honest discussion with myself about what's reasonable right now. Maybe I'm not able to exercise every day, but am I able to work out 3 days this week? I actually schedule those times, so it looks on my calendar like an investment as important as a meeting with my colleagues. And planning that out and kind of looking ahead to say, okay, I kind of see that this next week is going to be a little bit lighter. Where can I build out some of those extra things that I like doing? Coffee with friends or getting on a Zoom call with family and those sorts of things. One of the other things is I will force myself to turn off my computer by 8 o'clock at night, and then I'm just not going to open it again. There is that kind of rejuvenation effect that happens when I'm able to take that, about 10 to 12 hour period of I'm not reading emails, I'm not thinking about anything, I'm engaging with my partner at home, I'm focusing on the things that I need, taking the dogs for walks. It's refreshing. It gives me the brain space to go do hard things the next day.
I love to play the radio really loud and sing along in a terrible voice, but radio. I find that very stress relieving. I'm trying to get out for walks, and I do like to walk with my neighbors because I do find kind of the social aspect to be almost just as rewarding as the physical aspect. So we try to be safe and stay, social distance. And then to kind of alleviate some of the both anxiety and depressive symptoms that can come up from the not knowing when this is going to end and feeling frustrated that we're not getting to experience all the things we got to do last year or previous years, I'm trying to schedule one fun thing each week, whether that could be connecting with friends for a happy hour, whether it's even on Zoom where we play games for a game night, or whether that's safely going to a restaurant just to catch up with somebody. I find if I have one thing to look forward to, it makes getting through the week a lot easier because I have something to anticipate.
Involved in sports and stuff like that, a lot. I go to the gym. I like to play basketball. And that's something physical that I like to do. But when I find myself in that type of situation, I usually try to do it just a little bit more, or I try to, stay at the gym a little bit longer, or, do an extra set of, layups or layup drills or whatever I'm doing. When it's time to really try to relax, I like to really purposefully, listen to some nice, relaxing music, listen to some nice jazz or something like that. And just really like close my eyes and just try to think about something else besides the job, get into the music and things like that, to just try to just take a breath, And even when you're doing that, like that relaxation and things like that, some ideas may come to you that maybe wouldn't have come to you about maybe even your job or something else to help you with an idea.
So for me, going to the Y and working out has been huge. And when the pandemic first hit and the Y was closed, I got together with a bunch of my workout buddies and we worked out on Zoom, like in our living rooms for months, until the weather got warm enough outside and we could go outside and work out like in parks, socially distanced and stuff. It's the only thing that kind of keeps me on track and helps me feel like I'm not losing my mind. And it's also been really, like, this sounds cheesy, but it's been really empowering to build definition and actually get stronger, right? And watch myself get stronger, right? I love to read. I've always loved to read. And that's probably the other big one, like making sure that I keep reading and read new things, just kind of that's how my brain sort of like relaxes a little bit, kind of just like sinking into a book and staying there for a while. Mm-hmm. So I think trying to find something else that you like to do and making sure that you make time to do it is really important. Like if that it kind of helps you. The exercise for me is good because it makes me physically exhausted, but sometimes even when you're physically exhausted, you can't turn off your brain. For me, reading really gives me an option to kind of like tire out my brain, right? In a way that kind of makes me feel like more well-rounded overall.
I know for me, it constantly changes. Like at one point it was walking and listening to podcasts, but it can be even just like watching a TV show for 30 minutes before I go to bed, or using like a face mask. I feel like that's something to keep in mind, that it can constantly change from week to week or even day by day.
I also like to walk. My housemates and I, last semester when the weather was nice, we used to walk to Brightbeck Park like almost every night and watch the sunset. So I'm really looking forward to doing that again when the weather cooperates more.
Going to the gym. I spent a lot of time recently, since it's been nice out, walking to the gym, although it's not close, but it just feels good to be outside.
Honestly, for me at this point, I just cry it out and then I feel so much better. But sometimes it builds up. I just have to let it all out and then I pick myself back up again. So for me, just crying it out, it really helps. Yeah, I think it's very important because a lot of people try to push away their feelings most of the time. But me, I'm very connected to it. So I need to let it all out. Else I feel a lot. I usually feel a lot. So it's important for me.
For me, self-care, I like to color or paint. It makes me feel like I'm a child again, and just makes me feel very relaxed. Like I don't have a lot going on, not a lot in my mind. It just really brings me back to being a child, really.
Does anybody have any advice, words of wisdom for students who are struggling, but also faculty, staff who might be struggling during this time?
It is easy to look around and find helpers and promise and optimism. And at the same time, I think for me, it's also reminding myself that it's okay not to be okay completely yet. I am still worried about the disease. I am still worried about my family. I am still worried about financial impacts to K through 12 funding and what it will look like, the New York State budget. And that's okay. It's also okay just to be still and to kind of reflect on we've been through and are still going through a really challenging time. Be gracious with yourself in the way that you see yourself being gracious with your friends. You know, the mirror exercises and thinking about, why am I saying this to my friend Kyle to take time to do this? And yet I'm sitting here crushing out emails at 5 a.m. Be okay with not necessarily being okay, and give yourself the space to work through whatever it is, whether it's I'm having some emotional reaction, or I just can't kind of get out of my own head, or I'm really missing my friends. Build in those spaces to reflect and react to those things in the way that you need to.
Incorporate movement or physical activity or something that makes you feel good or something that makes you happy, and make sure you're incorporating that on a regular basis. I mean, it might not always be possible to go for a walk with neighbors or spend half an hour at an exercise class. But I think it's important to try to build in little pieces where you can and find strategies that work for you. So Zumba doesn't work for everybody, but it's something that I find enjoyable. But there's lots of free exercise classes online, more so than ever before. There's so many things you can find for free. So you don't even need to be purchasing apps or purchasing programs. You know, for students and faculty and staff, we have free resources at Oswego that we can utilize. But even if you don't want to take part in those, there's still lots of free supports online that you can access. So make use of those. Finding what strategies work for you, and what works for one person might not be the same strategy that works for the other, but that's okay. Keep experimenting until you find what works for you.
It's real important that students understand that they're not in this alone. When I say they're not in this alone, everyone, whether it's faculty, staff, students, are going through their different levels of stress and things like that. And they should not minimize their particular stress, right? So let's say, for example, you have a student and they're quote unquote, stressed out about a test they have to do or something they have to get ready for, a club assignment or something like that. But they think, well, I'm a student, so I really shouldn't be feeling this stress. I really shouldn't be worried about this. And they're minimizing their own stress level. And they really shouldn't do that, because that is a stressor for them. So again, they have to understand that where they are, and then try to do those things, to try to relieve that stress. And sometimes it may mean talking to someone else. Sometimes it could mean relaxing, but I know they need to know kind of where to go. And sometimes it could be their advisor, it could be the counseling center, it could be a confidant, one of their faculty members. It could be, someone that they feel comfortable with, that they could share, this particular stress without feeling like they're going to be criticized or made to feel like, well, why are you upset about that? Or why are you stressing out over that? That's such a little thing, but actually for them, it's a big thing. Unfortunately for us as faculty and staff, we don't really think we warrant any type of time to even relax or even to try to deal with self-care. We're always feel we have to be ready and on point doing those things for our students and for our team. And so we don't, look at it as, what, I need to just take a minute to just relax. I deserve it, I need it, and then you come back and able to face your team in your meetings and, there's students in your class, and you find yourself feeling a lot better. Unfortunately, a lot of us and faculty and staff, we just don't want to do that because we don't feel like we've earned it, or we're eligible, or we should, or we don't have the time, we're so busy, our job is so important to us, oh my gosh. Those are things I think faculty and staff need to take a look at as well. And it's not like, okay, well, I'm going to take time off, but I'm going to grade these papers. Oh, that's not what the time off is about.
Take a break, whatever that means to you. Even like when I was a student, pre-pandemic, right? When I was a student in undergrad and grad school, I set aside one day a week where you can just do less of your to-do list, right? Like, I'll try also on Sundays to not really do any house cleaning type things other than like the really laid back stuff. I try to make that day to just hang out with my daughter, or go outside, even if it's cold, or, like read for a little bit or whatever, but like, however you can do it, right? Like if you can take one day a week, where you kind of just make it for yourself, I feel like that's so important. It's only one day. We work really hard. We deserve it. And I felt guilty about that for like a long time, like taking a day, but now I'm like, no, this is my day. And I think it's really important, especially like as students, when you're trying to balance all these things, like all your classes, and if you have a job and family obligations and, just all of that, like it's so easy to it's kind of like being a mom in a way, right? Like you forget to take care of you because you're so wrapped up taking care of everything else, but
Yep.
You're important too.
I feel like just taking time to yourself, I know it's like the hardest thing to do, but at the end of the day, like school is not everything, your job's not everything, and you can't go to school or work if you're not healthy and well to go to it. And it's really not the end of the world. There's so many other things to look forward to in life, and you have to be healthy in order to enjoy stuff.
And I felt like it's really important for people to know that it's okay to just take time for yourself. Like all these things that we have going on isn't really all that important as much as we think it is. Like sometimes it's okay to just put ourselves ahead of everything else.
And I think the pandemic really showed us that, because life changes so fast that it really put things into perspective.
I think realizing that sometimes it is okay to like say no, because especially right now, everybody has a lot more than usual on their plate. And if things keep getting stacked up like on your plate, that's not good for you mentally or even physically. So it is, and I know it can be hard sometimes, but it is okay to say no to some things.
I want to say thank you to Dr. Laura Spenceley, Dr. Michelle Storie, Professor Stephanie Pritchard, Reg Braggs, and our wonderful P2Ps at the Counseling Center, who all took time out of their very busy schedules this semester to sit down and chat with me. I hope you all walk away from this looking for space in your own schedules to make time to prioritize yourselves. There's some wonderful ideas for self-care packed into this, but experiment and see what works for you. Please check back later when we hope to have more mindful chats in the near future. Thanks for listening.